So again, like last video, I didn't end up doing a post-game recap for the game one between the Bucks and the Nets last night because I fell asleep like right after that game ended. So yeah, that's the reason why this is coming out today instead of last night. So obviously the Bucks did lose this game. Nets won this game. Yeah, that's how it works. Usually when the losing team loses, the winning team wins. Here's why though the Bucks did lose. Despite Giannis being incredible, Giannis had 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, went 2 for 5 from 3, which is pretty good for his standards, and 16 for 24 from the field overall. Everyone else, minus Brook Lopez in the starting lineup, either, wasn't good or wasn't really an offensive contributor to begin with. Because that means it's PJ Tucker, Chris Middleton, and Jrue Holiday. And then off the bench, they didn't get a lot of production either. The most productive players were Bobby Portis and Brent Forbes off the bench. And Brent Forbes did not have a game that was even close to as good as any of his games in the first round. Then you look on the net side, and like the Bucks, the Stars played well. KD, 29 points, 12 for 25 shooting from the field, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, 1 steal. Kyrie Irving, not the most efficient from the field at 11 for 26, 3 for 11 from 3, but still at 25, 5, and 8. What separated these two teams was the production of the players around the Stars. Blake Griffin had his best game of the season by far. Just watching him play, he was hitting his threes, he was grabbing rebounds, he just looked really good. Joe Harris had a really good game as well. And then off the bench, Mike James had a pretty good game. So really what separated was the fact that not only were the Stars in Brooklyn playing well, or at least one of them was playing really well, one of them was kind of okay. The other players around them were playing well. Giannis didn't really have anyone else around him, minus Brook Lopez, that played well. Chris Middleton, 6 for 23 from the field, did not look good at all, only at 13 points. Jrue Holiday was a bit better, but he did shoot 7 for 19 from the field. You would like that to be better, but again, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, not bad, but could be better. When you're playing Jeff Teague in the rotation, you really need guys around you to step up. And I know Jeff Teague has been better for Milwaukee, but he's still not really a viable playoff option at this point in his career. So that was the big thing that obviously separated these two teams. Obviously the big elephant in the room is James Harden, though, which will probably be the title of this video. James Harden went out with a hamstring injury. This is not an easy thing to necessarily come back from. I'll be quite honest with you. And they're going to have to monitor it, and they're going to have to be careful with this. And I don't know if James Harden will play any other games in this series. There's a chance he does, there's a chance he doesn't, but this is big. I know you can say, oh, they still have Kyrie and KD. Yeah, that's true, even if Harden's not there. There. But you also have to remember, Harden was the best player on that team in the playoffs going into this series. He was their best performer. And trust me, I watched all 5 of those Nets versus Boston games, and Harden looked like the best player. Now, again, I think KD and Kyrie are enough to carry the load, but it changes the series because I had Nets winning this series in 7. And that was with Harden, because I thought these teams were more evenly matched than given credit for. I know people are saying, Nets in 6 is the popular choice, but I think the Bucks could win this series in 7. But again, I picked Brooklyn to win, but it's possible that the Bucks win this series in Game 7. Without Harden, it could change the series, because Harden not only is a great scorer, but he's also the team's best passer and their facilitator, and he played that role very well throughout the regular season when he was healthy, and very much looked like an MVP frontrunner when he was healthy this season. So that should be interesting. Also, can you count on Blake Griffin being as good as he was in this game? Joe Harris, I'm a bit more confident in him doing what he does, because this is what a good Joe Harris game looks like. So I'm not as worried about him. But Blake, you know, can he keep that up? Like, I doubt he can. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But, you know, it is something to look out for. Also, you can't count on at least Jrue Holiday having another bad game. Chris Middleton's a bit up and down in the playoffs to begin with, so it should be interesting to see how he continues to play. But they cannot stop Giannis. They can't. They don't have anyone on that team that can stop him. So that's also something to look out for, because, you know, that was an X factor going to the series. How are they going to defend Giannis? And so far they haven't really shown that. But they also can't code KD that well either, because KD had a very good game. And Kyrie, you know, even having an off game, was still pretty good. When you look at the bench, you know, is another thing besides Blake Griffin, can Mike James have another game that's as good as this game that he had? We had 12 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. Pretty good efficiency. And, you know, it's just things you need to look out for, because when I was watching the game, because I did rewatch some of it this morning as well, you know, it was very much a tale of this two teams doing opposite things, like I mentioned in the beginning, where Milwaukee, it was the star playing well and the supporting cast around him not being great. For the Nets, it was the star playing well, but also the supporting cast being very good around them. I always say this, you can't rely on the supporting cast around a player to be good all the time. You do have to rely on the stars, and Brooklyn has the stars that they can rely on. But this game was a lot closer than it probably should have been, given how bad Milwaukee was shooting from 3. You know, this game was an 8-point game, despite Milwaukee shooting 20% from 3. Also, you can also bring up the fact, though, on the flip side of that the Nets didn't have James Harden in this game. So, that it could balance it out a bit. And Milwaukee didn't shoot well from the free throw line either. Now, granted, they got 19 free throw attempts. Meanwhile, the Nets only got 9. So, that really doesn't matter at all, because they made more free throws than the Nets did. But also, again, if the Nets hit their free throws, that also means that they probably would have won the game. That's another way to think about it. So, again, what this game showed me was this series is going to be a lot closer, because there's a lot of factors in this game that led to where the game got, and I don't anticipate these things being consistent throughout the playoffs. Like, I don't consistently think Blake Griffin's going to have good games. I don't think Mike James is going to consistently have good games. I think they can have good games from time to time, but they aren't going to consistently do that in a 7-game series. In Milwaukee, you know, I expect Jrue Holiday to have a better shooting game. I expect Chris Middleton to at least be somewhat better than he was in this game, because he was not good at all. And I expect Giannis to be Giannis, because Giannis was dominant in this game, and I just expect that to continue. I expect Kyrie to have a better game as well, and we'll see with James Harden, because James Harden is the X factor of this series because of the injury that he has, and we'll see if he plays or not. Because again, you know, I think if Harden is healthy and they make a run to the finals, I do think there's a good chance that if they win the finals this year and Harden's healthy, we look at that team and say Harden was the best player or the best performer in the playoffs, because through the first round he was their best performer. He was consistently very good in that first round series against Boston. Granted, Boston was the equivalent of a G League team this year, or at least in the playoffs they were, because of the injuries that they suffered, with Kemba going down with injury, Robert Williams not playing with injury, and Jaylen Brown obviously not even playing in the series at all. But still, again, I mentioned it in my preview, you know, James Harden will have a chance to look like and probably be the best player on that Nets team, because not only does he bring value as a passer, he also brings value as a scorer. And he may not be the scorer that, that Kevin Durant is. He may not be the scorer that Kevin Durant is, because KD's like one of the best scorers ever. Granted, Harden is as well, but KD's like one of the 2 best scorers ever, in my opinion. But his passing is much better. The difference between Harden and KD as scorers isn't as big as the difference in them as passers. So that's why I believe that Harden could have walked away from these playoffs as the best player, or could still, depending on the injury. So that's just things to look out for. I expect about the Bucks to maybe try and bounce back in game 2. And we'll see. We'll see how the role players when both these teams play. We'll see how the stars play. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Sorry I didn't get this up last night.